This is the Mint live on ZTN Prime, your sneak peek into the world of business, finance and economies. We're coming to you live from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. I'm Ibn Nabunda. Let's get started. Coming up, President Mnangagwa yesterday met with a delegation from the IMF at State House as Zimbabwe enters the fourth phase of its staff monitored program, first adopted in 2019. The IMF praised progress on fiscal reforms and inflation control, but urged continued efforts to achieve economic stability and clear arrears. As Zimbabwe presses forward with economic recovery and formalization, a silent financial struggle brews in the shadows. For millions of informal traders locked out of the formal banking system, credit remains not just expensive, but sometimes dangerous. We give you a report on this. Business experts have emphasized the urgent need for strategic investment in infrastructure, innovation and capacity building to prepare Zimbabwe's manufacturing sector to fully participate in and benefit from the African Continental Free Trade Area. The World Bank has approved a $1.5 billion loan to support structural reforms aimed at boosting South Africa's infrastructure. Telkom declared an ordinary dividend of 163 cents per share and a special dividend of 98 cents, returning a combined 1.3 billion rand to shareholders for the financial year ended 31st of March 2025. The third United Nations Ocean Conference opened Monday in Nice, France, bringing together world leaders, scientists and environmental advocates to address urgent challenges facing the world's oceans, from pollution to overfishing and climate change. The Conference Board Employment Trends Index, a leading composite index for payroll employment, decreased in May to 107.49 from an upwardly revised 108 in points, according to the Conference Board on Monday. An official from the Worldwide Fund for Nature has called for more urgent action to protect ocean ecosystems, emphasizing that this year's Ocean United Nations Conference is expected to drive significant ambition on ocean-related issues. Now, of course, we'll take a look at these issues here on The Mint. The Mint will be right back. Don't go anywhere. You're watching The Mint as we come to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. Now we take a look at our stories in detail. President Mnangagwa yesterday met with a delegation from the IMF at the State House as Zimbabwe enters its fourth phase of its staff monitored program, first adopted in 2019. The IMF praised progress on fiscal reforms and inflation control, but urged continued efforts to achieve economic stability and clear arrears. Now, I was at the State House yesterday and filed the following report. Mnangagwa today hosted a delegation from the International Monetary Fund that's in the country to assist Zimbabwe with the IMF staff monitored program. Key on the agenda is the subject of arrears clearance, fiscal consolidation, as well as macroeconomic stability. Zimbabwe's engagement under the staff monitored program began in earnest 6 years ago. Now in its fourth phase, the program serves as a tool for government to build a track record of policy implementation without access to IMF financial support. The current review includes close scrutiny of public finances, inflation control and governance.
We just come here for two main purposes. One is to have the Article 4 consultations of the state of the economy, to talk about the development trajectory.
The IMF commended Zimbabwe for policy progress made to date, citing improved fiscal management, lower inflation trends, and enhanced transparency in public accounts, while calling for continued reforms to consolidate gains.
We're also looking at the broader prospects for Zimbabwe's development, economic development, and we've been discussing various structural reforms that would help make sure that the development that we are seeing so far is entrenched.
Zimbabwe's reform agenda is now focused on clearing long-standing arrears and gaining access to concessional financing. The government says the SMP gives confidence to international partners.
Then the second issue is to talk about the staff monitored program, which is a critical step in our arrears clearance roadmap. Again, we've been discussing how to make sure that we maintain the fiscal discipline that we had initiated in the past, to make sure that it continues.
The IMF stresses the need for Zimbabwe to stay the course, urging deeper reforms in governance, the wider adoption of the domestic currency, the ZiG, and foreign currency exchange efficiencies.
In terms of agreeing on policies that would be put in place to enhance stability of the domestic currency, also deepen the forex market, and also make sure that the fiscal discipline is fully entrenched. So these were the main topics.
As Zimbabwe marks its fourth round under the Staff Monitored Program, the government hopes that steady reform momentum will pave the way for debt restructuring and eventual access to full IMF support. From State House in Harare, Ibn Mabunda, ZTN Prime. Now, as Zimbabwe presses forward with economic recovery and formalization, a silent financial struggle brews in the shadows. For millions of informal traders locked out of the formal banking system, credit remains not just expensive, but sometimes dangerous. With the high interest rates, no collateral, and urgent cash needs, many are falling into the hands of predatory lenders. Our business correspondent Melissa Jatikobo gives us more.
The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has high interest rates at 35% to keep inflation in check and also stabilize the economy. But for the shadow banking sector, it's a different story. High rates mean more cash at the expense of citizens. Millions of Zimbabweans rely on the informal economy, with vendors, cross-border traders and micro-entrepreneurs playing a vital role. However, operating in a cash-based paperwork-scarce ecosystem, many find themselves paying the price for operating outside the formal system. Loan sharks, known locally as chimbazo lenders or omashonisa, are thriving in the shadows, offering little to no paperwork instant cash loans. But the cost is steep, with interest rates sometimes doubling the borrow amount.
Tingichida ma-interest rates edu atinorowa anyway between 25% to 40%. Zvichidependa nokuti pane collateral here, also zvichienda nokuti mari yacho inenge yakawanda sei. Tikati zvekutamba totogera kumusha.
Zimbabwe introduced microfinance institutions primarily to address the lack of access to financial services for the poor, marginalized, and informal sector businesses. But some have diverted from their mandate, taking advantage of this economy segment.
Because of that desperation, you find that some of the players will then take advantage of that desperation to charge high interest rates, knowing that definitely there will be someone out there who is willing to take up a loan from that trade.
As at 31 December 2024, aggregate banking sector loans and advances amounted to 55.9 billion ZiG, representing a 102% increase from 27.4 billion ZiG reported as at 30 June 2024. The banking sector continues to support the economy's productive sectors, which accounted for 72.25% of total loans as of 31 December 2024. Despite progress, Zimbabwe's interest rates remain high compared to those of regional peers.
If you compare the requirements of getting funding from a bank, one can conclude that they are generally more onerous than if you go to a loan shark. So the best way forward is for those who are going to loan sharks to start slowly building up on the requirements that are required by formal financial institutions.
So what can be done to protect the unbanked from predatory financing? Financial services providers share their insights.
Most financial institutions prefer immovable property as collateral. Working with the central bank, we have embarked on an initiative where we have started to take movable property, motor vehicles and so on.
There is need to be stringent in terms of these loan sharks, because they might be also the one that are driving the microfinances to charge high interest rates.
For now, Zimbabwe's informal economy continues to thrive, but at a painful cost. There is need for a solution to ensure that credit is a tool for growth, not a trap. Reporting for ZTN Prime, I'm Melissa.
Giving us that report. Well, time for us to take a breather after the break. Business experts have emphasized the urgent need for strategic investment in infrastructure, innovation and capacity building to prepare Zimbabwe's manufacturing sector to fully participate in and benefit from the African Continental Free Trade Area. The men to be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Dental checkups, experiments, games.
The mixture is making bubbles and the bubbles have changed color. Our balloon has been filled by carbon dioxide.
We have it all right here on Happy Sprouts. Catch us exclusively on ZTN Prime, DSTV channel 294.
Didn't graduate. I guess I blew it.
You couldn't advise him anything. He would just look at you and say, so who do you think you are?
We were just like really spoiled.
And then they just give me the receipt and I'd pay.
The guy walks in one day and then he says that he wants to make a movie.
He was blowing the money.
There was just like this habit that he had where as soon as he got money, it was gone.
I just didn't have the skills or the experience.
This money, I could see it disappear so fast.
Welcome back to the Mint. We're broadcasting to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. I'm Ibn Mabunda. Now, business experts have emphasized the urgent need for strategic investment in infrastructure, innovation and capacity building to prepare Zimbabwe's manufacturing sector to fully participate in and benefit from the African Continental Free Trade Area. This follows revelations by the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries that only 29% of the country's manufacturing sector is prepared to trade under the flagship AFCFTA agreement. According to CZI, Zimbabwe has yet to commence preferential trading under the AFCFTA framework as it has not fulfilled certain prerequisites required of a state party. A key outstanding requirement is the official gazetting of the country's market access offer. Commenting on the matter, Bulawayo businessman and former Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce MAT Region Vice President Mr. Louis Hapst said, under President Mnangagwa's Vision 2030, Zimbabwe is emerging as a promising market with significant potential to benefit from the AFCFTA. However, he noted that the current levels of preparedness reveal both challenges and opportunities. Of note is that a recent assessment shows that only 29% of manufacturing firms are ready to participate in the trade arrangement, highlighting the need for strategic investment in capacity building and infrastructure. He said that the textile sector in particular demonstrates optimism, likely due to better existing facilities and experience, pointing to the country's potential for growth. The key to unlocking this potential is improving transport networks, air, sea and road to reduce costs, boost competitiveness and facilitate access to regional markets for Zimbabwe. That strengthening logistic infrastructure is essential to prevent economic dependence on larger, more dominant economies that often exploit smaller nations through trade imbalances, debt, and foreign influence, thereby undermining true economic independence. He further noted that to position Zimbabwe as an attractive and resilient player, the country must prioritize technological innovation. Well, of course, Zimbabwe is strategic as it connects both the north as well as the south corridors. Elsewhere, the World Bank has approved a $1.5 billion figure loan to support structural reforms aimed at boosting South Africa's infrastructure. The Washington-based lender said in a statement the operation will address the nation's challenges of low growth and high unemployment by easing constraints in its energy and freight transport sectors. South Africa has vowed to modernize state-owned enterprises and open key sectors to competition to boost its moribund economy. The bank said its program will help by improving security, increasing freight transport efficiency, and support the shift to low-carbon economy. Our ongoing partnership with the World Bank will assist us to move forward with greater speed on the reforms vital to transforming our infrastructure landscape, said Minister Ino Gondogwana in that statement. The loan will make available funds for state-owned Eskom holdings to bolster the grid for renewable generation and Transnet, South Africa's port and rail company, to ease freight transport capacity. Now, Telkom declared an ordinary dividend of 163 cents per share and a special dividend of 98 cents, returning to combined 1.3 billion rand to shareholders for the financial year ended March 31st, 2025. The group's share price soared by over 7% to 42 rand in early morning trade. This marks the group's first dividend payment after a 4-year suspension, as Telkom noted in a statement on Tuesday. Adjusted headline earnings per share rose to 660 cents, while profit from continuing operations climbed to 3.35 billion rand. Revenue from continuing operations grew 3.3% to 43 billion rand, buoyed by mobile and fiber service income. The group's improved free cash flow of 2.78 billion rand, a 2.35 billion rand improvement, and net debt to EBITDA falling from 1.8 times to 0.6 times enabled the dividend resumption. Telkom's consumer unit grew service revenue by 10.2% and expanded its data subscriber base by 19.5% to 15.2 million. Wholesale infrastructure arm OpenServe reported a 5.9% increase in fiber-related data revenue, with a 50.4% fiber to the home connectivity rate. IT services subsidiary BSX also lifted fiber-related data revenue by 12.7%, while cloud services revenue rose 5.8%. Meanwhile, the property business Gyro contributed 730 million rand in proceeds through the transfer of 57 properties, enhancing liquidity. Telkom also completed the disposal of its masts and towers business, SwiftNet, in January 2025, resulting in an after-tax profit of approximately 4 billion rand. Telkom Group CEO Serame Takubong said that Telkom would maintain a disciplined capital allocation strategy, targeting capex of 12 to 15% of revenue. In the period under review, macroeconomic uncertainty, where growth and high unemployment continue to weigh on the operating environment. However, moderating inflation and lower interest rates offered some relief. The group expects stable economic conditions and an improved energy supply to support its growth strategy. Time to take another breather. After the break, the third United Nations Oceans Conference opened Monday in Nice, France, bringing together world leaders, scientists, and environmental advocates. Now the minute right back. Don't go anywhere.
Pardon?
Look up.
Whoa!
Okay.
Okay.
I'm Ollie J, your host and captain for this technological voyage.
They say that curiosity killed the cat. Well, we say curiosity makes you swipe.
Okay, there's a real big one. Oh, okay.
Okay, take the elevator.
Okay, that one
look
came
up,
out of
Look up.
From some tech-tastic adventures to some out-of-this-world Zimbabwean inventions to the scientifically mind-boggling, we show it all.
What we're looking at is 2 charging ports to charge the vehicle.
And things get electric. Catch Swipe right here on ZTN Prime, DSTV channel 294. Catch exclusive interviews every weekday for candid, exciting, and thought-provoking conversations with your host, Erika Ndoro.
We talk about arts, we can talk about sports, we can even talk about politics, and sometimes we venture into a nice guitaristic play. The one story where you can't get out of your head.
Wakatarisa munhu so Erika like where you are sitting. Ndozongokona bata face so pasina munhu.
Wakasiya music yako iyo afro chakuti ndo music manje no yeMzimbabwe.
And I'm sure they're still saying the same thing now.
Yeah, so
Shona kana kuti chindevere kana mumwe mutaure muno muZimbabwe ndiwe iwewe ndiwo rupawo rwako ndicho chidadiso chako.
Catch me, Erika Ndoro, right here on ZTN Prime every single Monday at 7 p.m. whilst we get exclusive.
Welcome back to The Mint. We're coming to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. I'm Ibn Mabunda. The third United Nations Ocean Conference opened Monday in Nice, France, bringing together world leaders, scientists, and environmental advocates to address urgent challenges facing the world's oceans, from pollution to overfishing and climate change. Co-hosted by France and Costa Rica, the 5-day conference aims to accelerate global efforts to protect marine ecosystems, which sustain over 3 billion people and play a critical role in regulating the Earth's climate. Jessica Battle, marine manager at the World Wildlife Fund International, said the ocean, if protected, can help fight climate change.
If we protect it, can help us fight climate change. So if you protect seagrass beds, for example, seagrass beds are like amazing heroes in capturing carbon. If we protect whales, they also capture carbon. Healthy fisheries are actually also part of the carbon capture, and the deep sea as well, which we know is really important for carbon capture and storage.
Key priorities for the conference include advancing the 30x30 target, a global commitment to protect 30% of the world's oceans by 2030. Currently, only 8.4% of marine areas are under some form of protection.
And that's really what we are looking for at this ocean conference.
Now, another major focus is securing enough participations for the High Seas Treaty, formerly known as the BBNJ Agreement, which would enable the creation of marine protected areas in international waters. To take effect, the treaty requires approvals from at least 60 countries, but only 32 have ratified it so far. French President Emmanuel Macron stressed the need, of course, to reaching the ratification threshold by September 2025 deadline, which also is calling for stronger measures against illegal fishing and harmful fishery subsidiaries. The conference features high-level discussions on sustainable financing mechanisms, including blue bonds and blue loans to support ocean conservation efforts. Scientists warn that rising ocean temperatures, acidification, and sea level rise threaten marine biodiversity and coastal communities. Underscoring the need for coordination, global action, the conference board employed Trends Index, a leading composite index of payroll employment, decreasing in May to 100.4.7 from an upward level of 108 in April, according to the conference board on Monday. Now, Clark emphasized the importance of this year's UN Ocean Conference, which aims to promote commitments from various governments and stakeholders.
WWF uses images, science and storytelling to bring the ocean and the natural world more generally to life for the public. And we believe that by connecting with people in that way, we can help them to understand and value nature and to take action in their communities and their countries to contribute to a better future for nature.
Now, WWF is ramping up efforts to safeguard marine biodiversity through both large-scale and local conservation measures, with a strong emphasis on science-based approaches. Speaking on the organization's priorities, a WWF representative highlighted the importance of marine protected areas and sustainable fisheries management.
WWF is working to support the establishment and effective management of marine protected areas around the world, and also smaller scale interventions like locally managed marine areas. So marine protected areas are a proven tool. Science-based fisheries management has also been shown, when it is effectively implemented, to stabilise and restore depleted fish stocks. So science-based fisheries management is a vitally important tool and an area where WWF works in partnership with policymakers, with the fishing industry and the seafood sector. And also targeted action for marine species that are under particular threat. Whales and dolphins, for example, marine turtles, sharks and rays. If we have targeted and strategic interventions focused on those species most at threat, we have seen that when properly implemented, we can achieve the recovery of some of those species.
The Oceans Practice leader also stressed the need to address climate change as part of efforts to protect ocean ecosystems.
And finally, the actions that we take in the ocean and coastal communities will be futile if we don't address the global challenge of climate change. Climate change is having a pervasive and rapidly increasing impact on ocean ecosystems. So it's those combination of things, work on habitats, fisheries, species and climate change combined and underpinned by policy, finance and community level action.
And that's a wrap, of course, on The Mint today. Do follow us on our social media handles at Papers TV Network as well as at ZTN Prime. Your views and your thoughts are important to us. Remember to catch us every weekday at 2 p.m. Central African Time for the juiciest business stories in Zimbabwe, on the continent and beyond. I'm Eben Mabunda, the money man. Let them do what they do. When we do what we do, we mean business. Thank you for watching and have a good day.